Hello, and welcome back to Ask Your Pain Doc. Today, I'm really excited to tell you all that I'm going to have our second video about neurographic art with my favorite neuro coach, Marie Amini. I know you guys ask a lot of questions and there are a lot of inquiry about neurographic art. We're going to answer them all. Make sure you watch this video till the end. Make sure you support my channel by click on the link below. Let's do it. So hello again and welcome to Ask Your Pain Doc. Thank you for accepting my invitation and thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Good to see you again.
So as you know, everybody loved your video and our video, and everybody asked me like tons of questions about neurographic art and how we can try this at home. So the stage is yours. I'm gonna let you go through a brief review and introduction, and then at the end of that we can ask some question, because there are a lot of questions about this technique.
Amazing. I would love to answer all of them. So just as a reminder, I'm Mary Amini. I'm actually a neurographic artist and emotional healer and trauma healer, and I work a lot with neurographic art to heal emotional trauma, anxiety, and things of that nature. It has helped me personally a lot, so I'm just putting forward what has worked in my life, and it's natural and medication free. So let me just go back on what neurographic art actually is. So neurographic art is a way for our subconscious mind to communicate to our conscious mind without any words. So it's a way for us to experience our feelings without actually getting our mind involved, without getting thought and language involved. And that's really important because, as you will know, emotional pain actually registers physically. And unless and until we somatically release that emotion and that energy is going to have nowhere to go. And that trauma builds up on itself and it becomes more and more acute and more and more chronic and more painful. So if we can find a way to release our emotions and our anxiety and our feelings and our excitement, it doesn't matter, onto a piece of paper without using words, it can be very, very healing. It's almost like having a rage ritual on a piece of paper. So, and I'm actually going to have a little exercise that we can try at the end of this session so you see exactly what I mean. But the way that our body works and our mind works is that we usually get an emotion, and then if that emotion registers deeply enough, our thoughts get involved. And then we get stuck in the rat race of the thoughts. And then there's no way of getting out. We're on a hamster wheel. So if we can interrupt that pattern and introduce something else like art, like something that doesn't require for you to actually think of logical things. This art is not, we are not looking at what is on the outside world and trying to create a representation of it. So our logic is not really involved. It becomes very instinctive, especially with the way that we draw neurographic lines, right? A neurographic line is a organic line, meaning it's curved, that goes where is not expected and never repeats itself. So by definition, you're really plugged into yourself and to your body when you're drawing a neurographic art, because in every moment, remember in the last exercise, in the last video, I said, draw a bunch of dots and try to connect these lines, but at the same time, go where you're not expecting, right? So feel where it wants to go and go anywhere but. So when we draw a line by the same principle, every dot along that line, we're doing the same thing, we're just doing it faster. So now your brain doesn't have time to think, because whatever it says, we're negating, we are taking it out of the picture. So we actually teach our mind, this is why it's a meditative art, because we start to teach our mind that, thank you, you're there, you're necessary, but we don't need to listen to you right now. I'm just going to focus somewhere else for a minute and get you off of this hamster wheel. So This is why neurographic art is very effective in allowing us a moment with our feelings and with our body without getting our thoughts involved. And it can be very, very therapeutic.
Before you continue, I'm going to show a picture that my wife did in one of her meetings after watching your video. I think she did an amazing job. This was her,
She has done,
and I think she was having through a stressful meeting, but she's done a great job. I think.
It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
So I'm really proud of her for trying that.
It's yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. The beauty of neurographic art is that it takes a dark moment. It takes something that can feel heavy and stressful, like you said, and just heavy, and make it into something beautiful. So now when she looks at that piece of art in remembering her meeting, she's not going to be stressed out about it. She's going to have a positive association with something that before was a negative feeling. This is what I mean. When we get to express our feelings, and if we can be present in the moment and express, not verbally, not with our words, not with thoughts, but rather with our body, and let it just do what it wants to do. Energy is constantly in flux.
Right.
If you allow it to flow, it will change. If we get stuck to it, it becomes trauma and it starts to build on top of itself, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So you said people had questions from last time. So do we want to address some of those? One of the questions was about rules about coloring.
Yeah, I think one of the question was like, is the coloring has any meanings in neurographic art?
Right. So in the last session, we went through the very, very basics of what neurographics involves, and just the basics of what the color, the line is, and how to round. There's a couple of different steps to this as well. So the next step is introduction of colors, and with colors we introduce frequency. And with that, there's only one rule, and that actually two rules. Number one, this is now instinctive. This is what you're doing to make that piece of paper look pretty to you. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. When you get it at the end, it should feel pretty to you. And the second rule is we never want one section stuck by itself in a color. We want at least two or more segments in the same color. And when you color it, you don't want to honor the boundaries. So if I can
so you mean the colors are sort of projection of your like emotion, right? Is that
right?
That's
so this right here, this is an example of the exercise that we're going to do at the end. This is called a release. This is literally me putting all of my frustrations out on a piece of paper, then rounding it and coloring it. But what I mean is when we apply any color, we're going to have two or more segments in the same color. I'm never going to create an island where it's just, let's say, just this is a different color.
Oh.
We want it to flow. And when I'm coloring, I'm not actually honoring these boundaries at all. So when I start to color from this end to the other, I'm coloring this whole chunk as one segment. I'm not actually coloring it as individual sections.
And why is that? Is that just, you know, those?
Because energy permeates borders.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's nothing solid and impenetrable to energy in this entire world. There's a whole philosophy behind the things that we put on paper here. And that's part of it. This idea that this piece of paper is the pleroma. It is the field of all probability and possibility. So you can use it in two ways. You can release your anxiety like I've done, let's say on this algorithm, or you can plan something for your life and say what you want for your future. You can use them both ways because this is the field of probabilities and possibilities. So depending on what we're doing with neurographic art, whether we are releasing the past or programming the future, we are present. We are present with ourselves in a way that we usually don't allow ourselves to be.
Okay. How do you explain this? Because I thought this you know, the way I understand it is like this is a connection, or at least presentation of the neuron connections, and
yes. So what ends up happening is, so if I show you the details that we end up getting on neurographic art, when you round all of these connections together, you know, as a scientist, this looks like the neurons in your body.
Right.
And one of the things that happens in your brain is when it sees this kind of pattern, your neurons recognize themselves. So they start lighting up. And the areas that don't have any representations around the thought that you're thinking as you're doing this, you start creating new neurons. So it's a way of creating deeper pathways within the brain with intention. So we're bringing the subconscious into the conscious mind and vice versa. It's a very symbiotic and synchronistic communication at that time.
Mm-hmm. And perhaps, I don't know, I'm trying to figure out, like, what is, when you say that you have to, you know, color a section, maybe that's just a connectivity of the, you know, a neuron pathway that you presented as a patch of color, or.
I think if you think of any energy, even within our own body, let's say if the temperature of a single cell in our body increases, the cells around it also feel that thermal energy. There is no boundaries that energy respects. So because a lot of the time when we are expressing our emotions with color, we are usually doing it around when we are releasing something. It has been something that has been limiting us in some way. So when we start to put emotions there, we want to know that there is no limits to our emotions, the depth of our energy, and what we can feel and how far we can go. So even though that event felt restrictive, now by using color and not honoring those boundaries, we are removing those walls we have made in the psyche that define us as who we are. And so we can change our association with an event in the past, so we can change our feelings about it.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Great.
I think the other my question, so from what I understand, is like the color is just an expression of, it doesn't mean necessarily anything with different, because I've seen some of the works that some of the, you know, artists they're doing, and some of them they're using really bright like colors, and some of them are a little bit you know, how do you say, it's more like, it's not a very loud colors, they're more oh yeah, I love that. That's beautiful.
It also sometimes depends on the medium that you're using. So if I'm using a black paper, I can show you the same algorithm on a white paper and it doesn't look nearly this bright, right? So it sometimes, as an artist, depends on the medium that you're using and how intensely you want to show those emotions and those feelings, right? So it's again, it's a representative of how you're feeling. If you're feeling really mellow, chances of you going to something this bright is not that high.
No.
Right? But if you're feeling higher vibrations, then you're going to be attracted to higher vibrational colors. Again, this is all a practice of you becoming aware of yourself. So noticing what colors you get drawn to, what are the intensities, what are the color families, are they warm, are they cold? It allows you, if you know the basics of color psychology, you have an insight into everything that is happening with you. The other thing that I tend to do is I believe in the energy meridians in our body, and I believe in our chakra system. So I invariably end up using chakra colors in my work. Very seldom you'll see anything other than the 7 colors of the chakras. You don't see browns a lot. You don't see. So this is it. This is the rainbow.
And would you mind refresh my memory about the chakra colors, please?
No problem. So from the bottom to the top, from root to the crown, they go red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and purple. And they just, root chakra is red, sacral chakra is orange, solar plexus is yellow, heart is green, throat is blue, third eye is indigo, crown is purple.
Perfect.
And those are the colors of the rainbow. exactly in the same order. So if when you break a ray of light through using a prism, this is exactly the spectrum you get.
Perfect.
Right?
Thank you. This right.
So it really depends on what we use neurographics for. So for me, for my personal practice and the way that I work with my clients, I actually have two sets of classes. So we do releases, which is what we're going to do. We're going to do a mini version of it today together. We do those on Thursdays, and then we do programming a couple of days later. So we do both. We let go of the past and we plan for the future.
Mm-hmm.
So depending
Perfect.
on what you want to do. So another question I think was to do with kids.
Yeah. So one of my viewers asked a specific question about kids with anxiety. You know, unfortunately, after COVID and kids staying home, you know, anxiety is a huge issue. Excuse me. Personally, as a doctor, I try to stay away from like anxiety medication as much as possible. Let's say for kids, they're all bad. You know, they all had side effects, and my opinion is like we have to use it if it's really, really, really severe. Is there any way we can use this in kids? Like, do we have to use a special
100%.
technique, or like how do you introduce in a simple form that they understand and they do it to kids? That was one of the good questions.
So the exercise that I'm going to show us at the end of this segment is exactly what we can do for kids. It's really, really easy. It doesn't require much explanation, and they can figure it out very quickly. And it's very effective at releasing whatever it is they're feeling, whether it's anger, anxiety, frustration, sadness. It allows them to release it and actually have a somatic release. So if we think about what anxiety actually is, anxiety is exactly what we've been talking about. We get a feeling, we get afraid of something, and then that fright starts our mind. So anxiety is a state of mind and not necessarily a feeling itself. It has underlying feelings of fear, insecurity, so on and so forth, self-abandonment, but it's not actually a feeling, it's a state of mind. So by interrupting the way that the mind is thinking about, because we have given our brain the job of creating a safe world in the outside for us to live in. And our brain can't, because it doesn't control our living environment. So because of that, it is constantly in fear. So if we allow for our brain to let go of that function and just keep us alive and, you know, tell us where we are and what we're seeing and all that, everything that it does great, we can actually release it so that it can use its energies in a more productive manner than getting us anxious all the time. Right. So absolutely, I have quite a few clients actually who started as adult clients, and either it became a family event. So every time we had, I would be on the big screen and I could see all of them in the living room, from little to every member of the family on the floor.
That's all. That's cute.
And that it becomes a bonding experience. It becomes something that puts everybody together, because we're all doing the same thing, but very differently. And no two pieces of art are ever going to look the same. So it's a great family thing to do. And I have a couple of friends who have children on the autism spectrum. So, and they have introduced this to their kids, and it's great for them. Now the kids actually ask for them. When they feel anxious, they ask mom to draw. And that's what they mean. When they say, I want to draw, they do the exercise that we're about to do together right now. So it's very simple. It doesn't require a lot of explanation, and it's not medication, but it is a way to interrupt this pattern that the brain is starting to get into, which isn't necessarily healthy for us.
Well, awesome. Yeah. I mean, autism is just, unfortunately, it's not uncommon. You see a lot of kids with different spectrum of autism, mild to, but if there's something simple like that could help him, that would be amazing. And you just touched on something that was one of my questions, and We have to make sure we share your link at the end, because some of the viewers are asking if you have a special course or a class that they can sign up. So we have to make sure we add that.
Absolutely. So it's standing classes. It's every Thursday at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. We do a release. Every Saturday at noon Eastern Standard Time, we do a programming. So people can decide if they want to come for one class, if they want to come for it's like a membership. So you can do drop-in classes or monthly or quarterly memberships. It's completely up to you. So we'll share all of that at the end, definitely. Awesome. The website and everything.
Thank you.
So shall we get started with a little bit of art?
Yes.
Great. You're ready?
Yeah, I am ready.
Okay. So the last time we did this, we didn't really go into much of the meditative part of this, because when we have a session, usually the first 20 to 30 minutes is a guided meditation. So I actually walk you through a whole meditation, and then we start the thing from there. I'm not going to put us through the whole thing now, but I want to have like a little mini version, because it's really important in this one that we really connect to our body. Okay, so if you're ready, hands down, what I want you to do is make sure your feet are flat on the ground, so your feet are not crossed, and make sure you're sitting up straight, right? So you can feel all of your bones weightlessly just stacking on top of each other. Tuck your chin a little bit to make sure your spine actually is straight. And when you're ready, just close your eyes, okay? And we're gonna take 3 really deep breaths. And as you breathe in, go into your body with your breath. There you go. And as you release any tension. Breathe in. Breathe out. In. Now, as you breathe out, I want you to keep your eyes closed, and I want you to think about something that is really frustrating. It can be something big, it can be something small, it doesn't matter. Just think of a subject matter that's really frustrating. As you're thinking about this, where do you feel it in your body?
In my head.
Great. So I want you to connect and think of an imaginary string from that location in your head to your dominant hand, the hand that you draw with. And using this string, I want you to now transfer all of that feeling into your dominant right hand, or dominant hand, whether it's the right. Feel it actually move from there, and feel your hand getting heavy as you move this frustration to your head. Now, holding on to that heaviness to your hand, slowly open your eyes. So this is what we're going to do. Knowing what your frustration is, I want you to put your pen on your piece of paper. Okay? Think of how the heaviness in your hand is. Take a deep breath and release that frustration onto this piece of paper. Okay? So it's going to look something like this. So, fantastic. There you go. That's your frustration. That's the very
frustrated, seems like it.
How did that feel to actually release that onto paper? How did that feel?
It feels like, so I feel like I just got it out of me. Yeah, no, it feels great. Yeah,
relieving,
there is
right?
some relief to it. Yeah, you're right.
So just by releasing it, you feel a little bit of relief. So now what we're going to do is the very first step of neurographic art, which is every time we see an intersection, we're going to round that intersection, right? So if you've done it like me, your chances are you're artwork underneath is going to look a little faint. So I'm actually going over all of my lines as I start to round segment by segment.
I'm getting better at this.
Practice makes perfect. And as you start to round, notice what kinds of thoughts you're having about that thing that was making you frustrated. Notice if you start to actually think about something other than what you were frustrated.
I actually, to be honest with you, I feel like this is just take my mind away from whatever my frustration was.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I don't know whether I should think about that or not.
The thing is, you allow for your mind to go wherever it wants now, because this is the subconscious coming through and speaking about whatever it needs to. So however you feel, whatever it is you're feeling, this is when we're going to be in complete acceptance. We're actually not going to dictate any terms and just let it go as it wants to.
And as you mentioned last time, so no coming back, it's all moving forward, right, with the pen?
Right. Right. So you're never going to go backwards on a line that you start from somewhere, because the lines that we're drawing are fields of energy, are lines of energy. They are vectors of energy, let's call them, if I'm using the right mathematical language. So the energy doesn't move backwards on itself. Energy is always moving forward. If we look at the expansion of the universe, it is constantly expanding. It is not shrinking back onto itself. So we don't want to bring that backwards energy into our life either. So we always move forward. No, there's a reason we don't have eyes in the back of our head. It's not where we're going.
Yours look much nicer. Mine is still very primitive.
No, you're doing very good. You're doing very well. I tend to be more round. I don't do a lot of jagged edges. It might be because, again, like you said, I'm practiced.
I guess you've done that a couple of times before.
You know, just a couple of notebooks. I think I have 3 or 4 notebooks full. Just not that many.
That's it. That's it.
So you see, this doesn't require a lot of explanation. You don't need to, we didn't need to get into any of the talk about the pleroma and the field of probabilities and, you know, how you need to draw lines, none of that. If we just tell kids, here's a pen, put your frustration out on a paper and just round the intersections. Chances are kids don't have the attention span to sit through to finish this algorithm, but as adults, I'll tell you how to finish it. But just doing this, just rounding all of these edges psychologically, it rounds the sharp edges they have in their mind as well. It calms down the sharpness of the tone of voice with which they're speaking to themselves.
Right, right. And it's so you're somehow projecting your anger into this piece of paper and you try to somehow round it or
expressing it. You're expressing that emotion without using any words. This is me being angry. Look on piece of paper. This is what it looks like when I'm angry.
You're right.
Or frustrated. But I'm not using any words. I'm not explaining it to you in a way you can understand, but I'm showing you in a way you can see. And expressing our emotions is a very, very big part of healing. I mean, there's a whole science of psychology based on it, right?
Wow, yours look so neat. Love that.
I have a little bit of practice doing this. So, and this is just, I guess, my neat freak nature coming out and expressing itself on paper. I do tend to be a very organized person, so.
Hopefully that helped me to get more organized.
If that's the goal, why not? We can program it for you. That's the thing, when our subconscious and our conscious minds talk to each other seamlessly without there being any incongruency, we actually have all the willpower, all the energy, all the motivation we need to get to our goals. If we're not achieving our goals, it's because there's somewhere deep inside of us that we believe this is not, we don't deserve it, or we can't do it. We are limiting ourselves internally. So when we remove that through practices with this kind of art, then we realize we're limitless. Our subconscious recognizes it and it says, your wish is my command.
That's right.
Wouldn't it be lovely if we all knew that we are all genies in a bottle and we don't just get 3 wishes?
That's what I'm trying to learn, to see, you have whatever belief, there is some capacity that is placed in your body that you can heal yourself. You don't need all these pain medications and all this bad stuff put into your body to help you. You can help yourself.
I think as a doctor, you will agree if I say, actually, medication doesn't heal you. It just provides an opportunity for your own body to heal you.
Right. It just
interrupts the communication that's happening between the organs and the brain and sends a different message. So the brain does something different. It releases a different hormone. It releases a different set of enzymes. It does something different, but that's all. It's a breaking communication. Most pain relievers are breaking the ability for you to receive pain. Beautiful. That looks amazing. That looks great. So I'm going to tell you what the next step is going to be. What you want to do from here is you want to dissolve this so you can't actually see the original release anymore. So what that's going to look like is this. Any place that you see you have a loose end, you see I've done a couple of them already. Any place that I have a loose end, I'll actually take this and start a new neurographic line from it.
I see.
And go out of my cage.
Out of the field, so you just...
Right? And I do this a few times until I have a whole bunch of new lines and a whole bunch of new intersections. And remember, your neurographic lines don't repeat themselves. They don't go where they're expected. So I'm drawing them really fast, but this is actually quite a subconscious process. So you really want to dissolve these.
So mine is turned into something like this.
Great. So you want to draw a few more lines because you can clearly see where your original release was.
Oh, okay. So it has to be dissolved. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Right. So if I mean, I'm nowhere near, but if you look at mine, I'm starting to lose where the original thing was. Especially if I start to round, I need to create more pattern here. You can see.
You're right.
Right.
Yes.
So
this is a method
dissolve.
to dissolve that initial anger pattern and turn into
right, because
turn into something bad to something good in a simple world, right?
turning something that is constricted into something that has a lot of ways of energy coming and going from it.
Right, right.
Because we look at the things that cause anxiety in our body as knots. These are issues we can't resolve. We can't solve them. So it feels knotty. If we can actually show it, no, look, there's so many different ways that there's getting energy from your environment around you, and therefore there is a solution, you don't feel as stuck. Now you don't need to be worried because there's a whole realm of probabilities and possibilities.
That's true. I'm getting addicted to this.
I've drank the Kool-Aid, so I'm not too sad to hear that. I lose entire weekends to neurographic art, believe it or not.
That's awesome. It's so relaxing.
Yes, very much so. And it also, like I said, helps when we are setting goals. Because it's not just a matter of me releasing my past trauma or bad feelings. It also gives me a way to put my wishes on the piece of paper and feel those expressed just as much as my anger. And that's really important, because if we just look at releasing emotions without putting something in their place, without giving our brain new thoughts to think, the old anxiety and the old patterns are all constantly going to come back, because we're creatures of habit. So it is important that as we let go of those things that are hurting us, we also look forward to those things that bring us joy, or we recall those things that bring us joy, and we create that pattern.
Right.
I'm going to try to round this as quickly as possible, because this can take hours. This is why our classes are 3 hours, because it takes that long to actually round
perfect
certain
that. Yeah, you're
algorithms.
right.
There are some algorithms that take much longer to round. This is a tree of life. This is one of those algorithms that takes a very long time to round. So usually when we do this, we start this in class, and then the next week they come and show us their finished product. Oh, I could show it, I guess, easier.
Beautiful.
So, but yeah, we can lose a lot of time to rounding. So once you have finished all your rounding,
yeah, I think mine is doing a little bit better. I feel like it's disappearing. Is
great. Yes.
And
yes.
There's some area needs to be perfect, but it's not.
How do you feel?
I feel like pretty relaxed, but sometimes I see those imperfect areas, and I get like an urge to fix it. Is that normal?
Yes, 100%. You start to become a perfectionist about your rounding.
Yes.
We all do. We all do. It's completely normal. Like you said, it just means you like
it's just an urge that I feel like it's just not where it's supposed to be. But it takes time. You're right. It takes time.
Right. This is not something we're rushing. The point is not to do this as quickly as possible and be done with it. If you want to do that, then use sticky notes. If you want to do it really, really quick, this is the size that we're going to do it in, because we don't want to rush this process.
Of course, no.
Let's say we haven't fully rounded this, and I'm going to spend some time rounding it, but because we had this idea of coloring, I want to show you exactly what I meant about coloring.
Okay.
I'm seeing it.
So I'm also gonna pick a color. So color, I can pick any color. Like,
you want to pick more than one color, but absolutely you can pick any color that feels good to you right now.
I think, I don't know, maybe red or blue.
Blue is a very calming color. Blue is peaceful. Red is the color for action, energy, movement. So let's say I have chosen, this is going to drive me crazy. So see, you're not alone. I had to round that before I could color it. So let's say we've chosen our color. Now I intuitively feel like this color wants to go here. But you see how I'm not respecting any of these boundaries? I'm actually coloring this whole section as one thing.
I see. So you do one section here, right? Okay.
When that feels good, we want to move on to a different section. Take another color, same kind of idea. Again, we're not respecting these boundaries. We lost your sound. That looks great, but I can't hear you.
I'm sorry.
You muted yourself.
So,
great. Exactly like that.
And okay, so I picked the next color. So,
and you keep going until you've filled about 70% of the page. You don't want to fill all of the page. You want to leave some of it white. One, because white by itself is a color, and two, because when we color the whole page, we are dictating terms to the universe.
oh.
And if we leave some white, we allow for the divine, the universe, to bring some things to us. So depending on how much of a control freak you are, you can color the whole thing or leave. I like to leave about 30% of it white. I'm only 2/3 a control freak. So it's important that we actually finish our rounding before we go to coloring.
Right, because then...
Especially depending on the medium that you're using. So let's say if you're using pastels, like either hard pastels or pastel color pencils, if you go over them with a marker, you'll dry out your mark.
Yeah.
So depending on what medium you're using, you want to make sure. So also sometimes color pencils themselves are very waxy,
right,
and it's hard to go over them with marker after.
I've seen some of the drawings that they go a little bit more, they color a little bit more around the edges. Is that something that has any meaning?
There's different coloring techniques, of course. So depending on what you shadow, you can actually play with dark and light within the same coloring scheme. Sometimes when we want to emphasize something in art, we do that. We emphasize the borders because then it will really draw your attention. So if there's a specific part of... Now, one of the things that happens with this is once you finish the whole thing, you are usually able to see shapes in it that you didn't see before. So I'm gonna see if I can find... This is a new notebook, so I don't know that I have that many algorithms in it, but I can find another one to show you. Okay, this is a good example. So once I have
Oh,
finished
wow.
coloring
Look
this
at
one,
that.
you see that what I saw was a heart.
Oh, yeah.
So
Beautiful.
usually with our releases, we get, this is my very, very large, these are the different kinds of programming that we can do. This one is called an ancestry mandala, where we connect to our past roots and our family. So this is me, this is my parents, and then their parents, and so on. So there's a lot we can do with programming ones, but even with this one, at the end, there will usually be a shape that will jump out at you. And that will be your inspiration towards what your feelings towards something are.
Perfect. I think mine's, I need to more pencil, but I think it came something like this.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting there.
So right away, I see something in yours, but I'm going to leave it for you to see what you can see.
Is that like a butterfly, or is a bird as well?
Yeah. So the first thing I saw was a butterfly.
Butterfly, you
There's a
saw it
pink
too.
butterfly on the corner. It was sitting on top of a
Yeah,
blue
yeah.
mountaintop.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Right.
That's it.
Right. So butterfly is when we get butterflies, it's usually, it means metamorphosis. It means something is changing. We are in a growth cycle and we're switching from one potential to another.
Wow. Maybe something good's going to happen to me soon.
Of course, always something good is always happening, but
that's awesome.
It's interesting to see what we see, especially when you remember that you started this as something that made you really frustrated.
Well, there's definitely a very, very calming effect to it. And it's very interesting how we can translate in a scientific way our anger and our frustration to a drawing. So I think that's the interesting part about this art, that it feels that as a me, that I'm not an educated artist, but I can transfer my frustration to a drawing.
100%.
That makes it very interesting.
It shows you that expression is not just verbal, right? It can be somatic. Your body can express something without it having any use of words. This is what dance is as well, and music to a great extent, right? But with dance and with this kind of visual art, we are using our body to express something.
That's right. That's true. That's true. But if one of the other question that someone asked me is like, if do you do it every day, or you let your body? I mean,
it really depends. I would not suggest doing releases, especially very deep releases, on a daily basis. I would suggest once a week maximum for releases. But if this is a full release, if you feel really anxious, if you're sitting in a meeting and you're feeling frustrated, then the littler versions where you do on a sticky note, absolutely do them all day, every day. I do some kind of a neuro art almost on a daily basis. Right. So I'm doing something probably, I think 48 hours is the most I've gone without actually putting something on paper. So
right.
For me, it's a method of expression. So use it however you like.
My other question, and that came as you mentioned that this could help with a lot of kids with some disability. Do you think do you have to perform the art, or just watching somebody else's drawing can also help?
It can. One of the things that I've done is I've done a few time lapses of me creating the art, and I've been told that's also calming. Just watching somebody else do it is calming. It's a very different experience though, because the whole point of this is for you to have a somatic release, to have your body express and release something that it's been holding on to. And it's not something that you can do by proxy.
Right, right.
The beauty of this is very suitable for neurodivergent people, whether adults or kids, because they see the world differently. They don't see the world in these boxes we have created. They tend to be very creative anyway. And in my experience, there's a few of them who actually end up seeing things 3D format when they do neurographic art. They have the ability to expand this out in a way that I don't have. My view is flat. So it allows for everybody, regardless of your neuropathic normalcy or divergency or whatever it may be, to actually have the same kind of experience. Because at the end of the day, we all have our bodies and we have our minds, regardless of how they work, and getting them to express without judgment, without labeling it. Whether I do a piece of release or somebody who is neurodivergent does it or somebody who isn't, we all are having the same experience, even though we end up with very unique results. But in that, we can all feel the same. We can all get the same results.
That's beautiful. There's definitely, there is whatever energy into it. It's very addictive. I think, I mean, I felt that, I loved it. And even most of my subscribers, when they saw the video, they were like, they loved it. So this is great. This is great. So is there anything you want to add? I know
the one thing I want to say is, as you try this at home, when you watch this, don't become a perfectionist. There is no way that you can mess up a piece of neurographic art. It doesn't matter what you've done. Even let's say if you forgot that I said don't put something in an island and you end up with one color and an island by itself. Let's say somehow I managed to make this the only yellow piece. You can always add another neural line and turn that into two pieces. Right? So there's no way ever to really mess up, and just be free and have fun with it, and really allow yourself. One rule that I forgot to mention, which is really important. Whenever you do a piece of neurographic art, when we start rounding, we don't get up until rounding is done, because that's the part that is doing the programming. So if you commit to yourself to do this for yourself, if you're going to give yourself the opportunity to do a release, it is really important that, one, become aware of your resistance to rounding. If you start to think things like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? Why did I draw so many lines? This is so stupid. This is taking too long. I need to get up and feed the kids. Recognize that this is your ego putting a roadblock, because it's starting to recognize, I don't know what this thing is. It's making a change, but I don't know what it is and I'm not comfortable with it. Sit through that. Give yourself the ability to push past the chatter of the mind. That's why this is a meditative process. Let it say whatever it wants, but you stay there committed to your rounding, to bringing peace and harmony to all the sharp edges in your life. So that's really important. So if you give yourself that time to actually express what you're feeling without using any words, so there's no room for judgment for you either. You can't judge your own thoughts when you don't attach words to them, right? So if I were to tell you, tell me about your problem that you put on a paper, as you're telling me about it, you're going to judge what you're saying.
Right.
And you edit it as you say it. We do the same in our own brain. It's just we don't do it out loud. So when I remove that from you, when I say, think about that thing that frustrates you and let it dissolve without any words, you can't judge yourself either. And that allows for some relief from this overburdened brains we've created.
I know this is a really, really interesting and fascinating and also simple. It's very simple, but it's very complex. That's what it makes it very interesting. That you can project your emotion into a drawing, and then try to, then you heal it. You just heal it, and you smooth it, you put color into it, and you just let it go. It's very fascinating.
And it works.
And it
10
works,
times
of
out of
course.
10.
Yeah. This is really interesting.
I'm
So
glad I have you hooked.
yes, yes. So we'll make sure we put your information at the video description. So if any of the viewers would like to contact you, they can contact you directly, and they can sign up for your courses, which I would definitely recommend. I may do that myself. I may be one of your clients soon.
Great.
So thank you so much again for your time. This was
Absolutely,
wonderful.
my pleasure.
I'm going to finish my project, and I'm going to email it to you.
Right. I will do the same. I will finish this, and I will send you the completed work so you can share it at the end, so everybody sees at least what my work looks like as well.
Thank you again for your time.
Thank you so much.
I hope you liked this video. If you like this content, make sure you subscribe to my channel, send me your comments and feedback, and I will see you all soon. Have a wonderful day.